Did you know that people who only sleep 5 hours a day lose 55% less fat than people who sleep 8? Same diet, same calories. The only difference is sleep. And one of the biggest ways people sabotage their sleep without even thinking about it is by eating the wrong foods at night. So I'm going to show you 7 specific foods that improve your sleep and support fat burning at the same time, including how much you should eat, pro tips for preparing them, and the hidden mistakes that cancel out their benefits. Here we go. Food 1, the missing sunlight signal. To start, I'm going to show you a food that helps you sleep deeper so your body can actually burn fat overnight. The food is common in Nordic countries like Norway, Iceland, where for months at a time, there's almost no sunlight. Now, according to everything we know about sleep, that should be a problem because your body relies on light to regulate its internal clock. But historically, people in those regions still slept well. And it turns out that's because of this one food that kept showing up on the dinner table: fatty fish. They didn't know why it worked. They just knew that when fish was on the plate, people slept better. Then when researchers finally tested it, the answer caught them off guard. It turned out that it wasn't the protein that was responsible. It wasn't even the omega-3s. It was the vitamin D. Fatty fish is one of the only foods that gives you a meaningful amount of vitamin D. And vitamin D controls how well your body produces melatonin, the hormone that regulates your sleep. When vitamin D is low, melatonin drops and your sleep becomes lighter and more broken. But a single serving of wild salmon can give you close to a full day's worth, several times more than farmed salmon. Fatty fish is also loaded with EPA and DHA, the 2 most powerful omega-3 fatty acids. And those help reduce stress signals inside fat tissue. And when those signals drop, fat cells release stored energy more easily, which your body can then burn up. That's one reason people who consistently eat omega-3s tend to lose more belly fat over time. Now, here's what matters when you're adding fish to your diet. You want to eat a piece about the size of a deck of cards, or roughly the size of your palm, 2 to 3 times a week at dinner. The most cost-effective way to do this is frozen wild salmon. Here's a tip most people don't know. That beautiful piece of fresh salmon sitting in the grocery store display case may have been on ice for up to 2 weeks. Frozen at sea wild salmon is flash frozen within hours of the catch, so it actually retains more of the nutrients than the fresh stuff. And it's almost always cheaper. If salmon isn't in the budget, canned sardines or mackerel in olive oil also work great. And they're usually $2 a can. Just make sure that the label says in olive oil, not sunflower oil or soybean oil. Those seed oils are loaded with omega-6 fats that create inflammation, which is the opposite of what you're going for. And if you're using sardines, you can eat the bones. They're completely soft and you won't even feel them, but they are packed with nutrients like calcium as well. They're not my cup of tea, but sardines are incredibly nutritious. Next, to show you how something simple can improve your sleep, think about Halloween for a second. You carve a pumpkin, you scoop out the middle, the seeds, and you throw it away. That's a mistake people have been making for thousands of years because those pumpkin seeds have actually been used as medicine by cultures like the Mayans, the Aztecs, the Cherokee. One small palmful, about an ounce, roughly enough to fit in a cupped hand, gives you almost 40% of your daily magnesium, plus 2 other sleep-promoting nutrients, tryptophan and zinc. That's 3 separate sleep pathways from one small handful. But a palmful of pumpkin seed, it only costs about 25 cents. Now here's the mistake most people make that ruins the sleep benefit. They eat the pumpkin seeds by themselves and wonder why nothing happens. That's because tryptophan in pumpkin seeds has to compete with other amino acids to get into your brain. And without a small amount of carbohydrates alongside the seeds, the tryptophan loses that competition. So you want to pair them with a high fiber, low glycemic carb like a berry, a sweet potato, or a whole grain cracker. You could also spread a tablespoon of pumpkin seed butter on a piece of sprouted grain toast. When you're buying them at the store, you want to look for them to be raw, unsalted or salted, small green hulled seeds. We buy big bags of them at the Livingood household. The kids even enjoy them. Just make sure they're not not roasted in any toxic seed oils. Then all you need to do to get the sleep benefits is about an ounce, a small palmful. Eat them an hour or two before bed. Just make sure they don't get heated too much to make sure you don't alter the healthy fats that are in those pumpkin seeds. Next, to show you how powerful food can be for sleep, let me give an example that surprised even researchers. In 2011, researchers ran a simple study that produced results no one expected. They had 24 adults with sleep problems, and they had them eat 2 green kiwis 1 hour before bed every night for 4 weeks. And they were shocked by the results. Sleep quality improved by 42%. Time to fall asleep dropped by 35%, and total sleep time went up 13%. Those are the kind of numbers you'd expect from a drug, not 2 pieces of fruit that cost about $1 total. What makes kiwi different from every other food on this list is that it contains serotonin already formed in the fruit flesh. Every other sleep food gives your body raw materials, and then your body has to do the conversion work to eventually make serotonin and melatonin. Kiwi skips that process. The serotonin is already assembled. That's likely why the study numbers were so strong. For fat loss, 2 green kiwis come in at about 90 total calories. They're also on the low glycemic index, meaning they won't give your blood sugar a big spike before bed. And the fiber supports stable insulin levels overnight. So if you want to start using them for sleep and fat loss, then all you need is 2 green kiwis, about the size of a large egg each. Ideally not the gold kiwis. All the sleep research that was done with green kiwi specifically. And then a recent study found that green kiwi contains an enzyme that gold kiwi doesn't have, one that drives a stronger peak in tryptophan absorption. You want to eat them at least an hour before bed because the serotonin compounds need time to absorb and start working. You also can consider eating it with the skin. I know it sounds a little strange. I always peeled them as a kid, but now I don't. The skin of a green kiwi has nearly triple the fiber of the flesh, plus extra antioxidants, and you really don't tell that much of a taste difference. Just give it a little washing and a scrub with a produce brush and then eat the whole thing. The fuzz is barely noticeable when you start chewing. Most people peel it off and throw it away, but that's one of the most nutritious parts. Also, don't juice them. The fiber is part of how this works, especially the connection between your guts and your brain's serotonin production. Juice just strips the mechanism out of that. And if you want to see real results, then you need to stay consistent because the benefits compound over time. Eating 1 kiwi on a Tuesday night isn't going to change your sleep, but eat 2 kiwis every night for 2 to 4 weeks, and you'll start to notice the difference. Next, I want to show you something that goes against what you've probably been told about eating at night. Now, I'm big on making sure 2 to 3 hours before you actually fall asleep, you're not eating in that window, but sometimes dinner gets over at 5 or 6, and you're not in your 3-hour window yet, but you kind of have, just a little craving. You want a little something right from that 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. or 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. time period. Then you're going to go to bed at 11 or 12 o'clock later in the evening. So a lot of people believe that anything you do eat is going to get turned into fat, but that's not true. The research actually have tested this specifically with protein, and the results are consistent. Eating protein before bed does not stop your body from burning fat overnight. Now, don't eat too close to bedtime. That's not what I'm saying. But if you do have a protein snack, some studies show it actually increases how much fat the body burned. And of all high protein foods that you could eat in the evening, cottage cheese may be the most scientifically proven option. It is loaded with a protein called casein. Now, some people are sensitive to it, but it digests extremely slowly, and it forms a gel in your stomach that drip feeds amino acids to your muscles over 6 to 8 hours while you're sleeping. Think of it like a time-released capsule in whole food form. So for anyone over 50, it's especially important because muscle mass naturally declines with age, and muscle is what drives your resting metabolism. Now here's how you could use it. 1 cup of plain cottage cheese, about the size of a single serving container. It gives you roughly 28 grams of protein. I go with plain, full fat, and I get it organic because it's more filling, and then it keeps you from waking up hungry at 3 a.m. You could eat it, like I said, as a post-dinner snack or dessert early enough in the evening that you're not eating right before you lie down for bed, like we talked about. The casein keeps releasing amino acids for up to 6 to 8 hours, so even eating some with your dinner covers your entire sleep window. Now, don't buy flavored options. Flavored cottage cheese can have 10 to 20 grams of added sugar per serving. That sugar spikes before bed, and it does 3 things to the body. It jacks up your insulin, which blocks growth hormone release during your deep sleep, causes blood sugar to crash around 2 to 3 a.m. That wakes you up, and then it works directly against the fat burning that you're trying to support. So always get the plain version, no added sugars. Also, the tryptophan in cottage cheese works the same way that we talked about with pumpkin seeds. So a little bit of fiber to go along with it will help it reach your brain better. That's why cottage cheese topped with 2 slices of green kiwis is one of the best evening combinations that you can make. You can get the slow release casein for your muscles all night. The tryptophan gets boosted from the fiber in the kiwi, and the kiwi brings its own serotonin and folate on top of that. Now, if texture is the issue, a lot of people don't love the curds, you could just blend it for 30 seconds. It turns silky smooth, almost like ricotta. Add a little cinnamon to it. You got a 2-minute dessert that's actually working for you while you sleep. One more note, cottage cheese is actually low in lactose. It's only about 1 to 2 grams per serving compared to 12 grams in a glass of milk. So a lot of people who don't drink milk handle cottage cheese just fine. Next, I'm going to show you one of the few foods that actually contains the sleep hormone that your body is trying to produce at night. In medieval Europe, healers followed something called the doctrine of signatures. The idea that if a plant looked like a body part, it could heal that body part. They looked at a walnut and they saw 2 lobes, a wrinkled surface, a hard shell. It looked like the skull and brain, and so they decided it must be good for the brain. The science world laughed at them for 500 years with this kind of thinking, but it turns out they were accidentally completely right. Walnuts are one of the very few foods on earth that contain actual melatonin, the finished sleep hormone already formed inside the nut. Just last year, the University of Barcelona conducted the first study in history to prove that eating walnuts directly increases melatonin levels in the human body. 76 adults ate about 1.5 handfuls of walnuts with dinner every day for 8 weeks, and they fell asleep faster, slept better overall, and were less drowsy during the next day. Now, if you want to eat enough walnuts to get these benefits, all it takes is about 14 walnut halves, enough to fill a loosely cupped hand. Eat them with dinner, not so much as a late night snack, and they're about 260 calories per serving. So they should probably replace something else that you'd otherwise eat, not get stacked on top of it, ideally. Also, eat them raw. This is important. Heat breaks down the plant melatonin in walnuts, which is the main reason you're eating them. And just like with pumpkin seeds, oil roasted is the worst option. Now, here's something almost no one knows. It might be the most important practical tip in this entire video. Walnuts go rancid faster than almost any other nut because of their high fat content. And rancid walnuts don't just taste bad. That bitter paint thinner flavor means that the fats have oxidized and turned inflammatory. So if you've been eating walnuts out of the bowl on the counter or a bag in the pantry for a few weeks, you may actually be eating something that's working against your sleep and your joints instead of helping them. So fresh walnuts taste mild, slightly sweet, almost buttery. If your taste is bitter or sharp, throw them out, replace them, get some fresh ones. Store them in an airtight container in the fridge, and they'll keep for up to a year, or in the freezer for up to 2 years. Be patient. The Barcelona study ran for 8 weeks. This is a food where the benefits build with daily consistency. It's not going to change your sleep in 2 nights. You got to be consistent. Okay, now the sleep effects of food number 6 were found completely by accident. Sports scientists were studying muscle recovery in athletes and giving them tart cherry juice to reduce post-workout soreness. And the athletes kept repeating the same unexpected side effect. They were sleeping significantly better. That wasn't part of the study. No one predicted it, but the observation sent researchers back to the lab, and what they found surprised everyone. The actual melatonin in tart cherry juice is about 6,000 times less than what's in a standard melatonin pill. So how did it produce real, measurable sleep improvements? It works through a completely different mechanism. It doesn't add melatonin to your body. It protects the melatonin that your body is already making. There's an enzyme that normally diverts the raw materials away from melatonin production, essentially wasting them. But tart cherry juice contains a compound that blocks that enzyme, so more of your body's own melatonin gets produced and stays active longer. In one study, adults with insomnia who drank tart cherry juice for 2 weeks gained 84 extra minutes of sleep per night. And that was measured with lab equipment, not self-reported. 84 minutes from a juice. Now, the way most people use cherry juice is wrong. They buy a bottle of cherry juice at the store, pour it in a glass, and then think they've done something good. But that glass has about 160 calories and is usually sweetened with apple juice to mask the tartness. The secret is that you want concentrate, not juice. About 1 to 2 ounces of concentrate, roughly a shot glass, diluted in a glass of cool water. That's about 50 to 60 calories, and it's far more concentrated than the bottle juice, and it's very tart. The label needs to say Montmorency. That's the specific variety of tart cherry that has the highest levels of the active compounds, about 6 times more than other cherry varieties. So if the label says cherry juice blend, it usually means it's mostly apple juice with a little cherry mixed in. Also watch for sugar in the first 3 ingredients or the phrase natural cherry flavor. It usually means there's barely any actual cherry in it. Then when we're preparing it, remember that temperature matters. Never mix the concentrate in the hot water or tea. The melatonin protecting compounds are sensitive to heat and they break down. So cool or room temp water only. You want to drink it 60 to 90 minutes before bed. Too close to bed and the liquid increases your chances of waking up for a bathroom trip. Too early and the effect peaks before you're asleep. And just like with some of the other foods that we discussed, it takes time to affect your sleep. Give it 7 to 14 days of consistent use before judging whether it works for you or not. Number 7, the last one. This has been used for over 3,000 years. And only recently did we figure out what it's actually doing in the brain. The ancient Egyptians used it as a medicine and dedicated it to their gods. Greek physicians prescribed it. Roman soldiers bathed in it to recover after a battle. And medieval monks grew it in their monastery gardens, especially as a sleep remedy. I'm talking about chamomile tea. For 3 millennia, across completely different civilizations, the same plant kept showing up for the same purpose. Now we know why. The active compound in chamomile is called apigenin. And apigenin binds to the same receptors in your brain that anti-anxiety medications like Valium target. They're called GABA receptors. GABA is the system that quiets your brain down at night. And apigenin activates it gently. No dependency, no grogginess the next morning, none of the side effects that come with the drug. Clinical studies show that chamomile improves sleep quality, reduces anxiety, and this is the part most people don't know, one long-term study found that people taking chamomile extract for 6 months had significant reductions in body weight. The mechanism is the stress connection. Lower anxiety means lower cortisol, and cortisol is the hormone that drives belly fat storage. It also has 0 calories, 0 sugar, no insulin response. And after 2 to 4 weeks of drinking it every night, your brain starts to associate the ritual, the warmth, the smell, the act of making the tea with sleep itself. That's real conditioning. The same reason reading in bed eventually makes you drowsy. Now, here's where most people go wrong with chamomile. And that's the reason why so many people say, I tried it and it didn't do anything. First, use 2 tea bags, not 1. 1 tea bag doesn't deliver enough apigenin to do anything meaningful. 2 is the sleep grade dose. Secondly, steep it for about 8 to 10 minutes, not 2 to 3. A quick dip in the hot water only gives you chamomile flavored water. And unlike green tea, chamomile doesn't turn bitter with a longer steep. You literally cannot over steep it. So let it sit. Third, cover the cup while it steeps. The active compounds in chamomile can escape with the steam when the cup is open. So put a small plate or a saucer over the top and you'll keep those compounds in the tea instead of losing them to evaporation in the air. Fourth, use water that was just finished boiling. Chamomile actually releases more of its active compounds at higher temperatures, which is the opposite of green tea where you use cooler water. You want to drink it 30 to 45 minutes before bed. That's because apigenin takes about 15 to 30 minutes to get absorbed and then another 15 to 30 minutes to reach your brain. If you drink it right before bed, the peak calming effect arises while you're lying there waiting for it to kick in. Also, don't use any sweetener. Sugar or honey before bed spikes insulin, which defeats the entire purpose. If it tastes too plain, add a pinch of cinnamon, which can also help control blood sugar levels. And then finally, quality makes a real difference with chamomile. Budget supermarket tea bags often contain ground up chamomile dust with very little of the active compound. So look for whole flower chamomile where you can actually see the dried flower heads and enjoy some tea. All right. Now you have the 7 foods for sleep and fat loss. But the food is only one piece of this. What you do between dinner and bed, the habits, the timing, the order, determines not only how well you sleep, whether your body actually shifts into fat burning mode overnight. So I put together a complete 9-step bedtime routine that walks you through exactly what to do step by step from the moment you finish dinner to the moment your head hits the pillow. It's called Do These 9 Things Before Bed to Lose Fat and Get Amazing Sleep. I'll include a link to that here. Click to watch it next, and I'll see you there.